Hello everyone, my name's Doc, your host for all things healing, and welcome back to another episode of Healer Skill Spotlight, the series where we take a look at the good, the bad, and the broken things about every ESO healer skill. Since I recently made some Dragonknight healer builds, I thought it might be a fun idea to continue with some more DK content. So, in this episode, we'll be taking a look at the Dragonknight's Hearthfire skill, as well as its morphs, Firekeeper and Hearth and Home. As we always do, let's start by talking about the base skill and what it actually does. Hearthfire, originally called Ash Cloud before the class identity refresh, is a skill found in the Dragonknight's Ardent Flame skill line. When cast, you can place an 8-meter AoE heal on the ground up to 22 meters away from you. This AoE heal lasts for 15 seconds and ticks once every second with a target cap of 6 people. Allies affected by the AoE will gain Minor Fortitude, which increases health recovery by 15%, and Minor Heroism, which generates one ultimate every 1.5 seconds. So, right off the bat, I'll go ahead and say that this is a pretty good base skill. Even prior to the DK rework, the original skill was still a very strong heal. It was actually one of the strongest AoE heals in the game, if I remember correctly, and it's still a very strong AoE heal today, especially if you pick a certain morph, which I'll talk about in just a second. These buffs are also pretty solid. Minor Fortitude isn't a super necessary buff, especially since this will most commonly be covered by Radiant Aura from the Templar's Restoring Light skill line, but it's certainly nice to have, and I do appreciate having it. The really nice buff here, though, is Minor Heroism. Most commonly, you'll see teams source Minor Heroism through potions or sometimes banners, and I'll talk more in just a minute about whether or not that could change, but having a skill that offers Minor Heroism is still super helpful. Where Hearthfire does start to falter a little bit actually has nothing to do with the skill itself and everything to do with the skill line that it's attached to. While Ardent Flame has sort of become the de facto healer skill line for Dragonknights, I would definitely say that Ardent Flame is used more efficiently in the hands of a DPS than a healer. The passives don't really do much for healers unless you're on a hybrid build that utilizes dots. On top of that, based on my current predictions, most serious raid teams will likely want to have a pure class Dragonknight somewhere in their roster, and in my humble opinion, the healer role seems least likely to be the one to house that pure class DK. My money, personally, is on most teams leaning towards their DK being a support DPS, since a lot of tanks and healers will want to stay subclass to remain optimal. I could be wrong though, so only time will tell whenever update 50 rolls around. Anyway, let's move on to our first of two morphs, and I want to start by talking about Firekeeper. So, Firekeeper changes the base skill so that when you stand in the AoE, it heals for significantly more, and now the buffs persist for 15 seconds instead of only while you're being affected by the AoE. This means that you and allies can leave the AoE heal and still maintain the benefits of having Minor Fortitude and Heroism. Now that we've had more time to utilize the skill since the rework, I feel confident in answering the question of, will this replace heroism potions and banners? And I think the answer is not quite. What I think this morph enables players to do is have a good source of minor heroism that healers can bring in casual groups, where players may not be able to afford a steady stream of heroism potions. In case you don't know, heroism potions can be pretty expensive. In optimized groups, though, it will likely make the most sense for ulti-gen healers to just simply continue to bring those heroism pots, as you can very easily achieve a 100% uptime on minor heroism just with the push of a button. And you get the added benefit of opening up a skill slot to use for something else that may be more beneficial to the group. Please don't let that lead you to believe that I think this skill is bad or not worth taking, though. Far from it, actually. Again, for groups that can't or don't want to use heroism potions, this can be an excellent way to provide a very useful buff, but even outside of those groups, it's still just an all-around solid AoE heal. Nothing wrong with it. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to our last morph, Hearth and Home. So, this morph changes the skill to now grant you major protection when you're standing in the AoE, it snares enemies, and the heal also now scales off of max health. I'm sure you can probably tell, but this morph is a bit geared more towards tanks than healers. However, I will say that this skill is awesome for PvP healing. Major protection is a skill that PvP healers have been struggling to efficiently source for a while, at least in my experience. Most commonly, a lot of PvP healers used Revealing Flare as it passively grants major protection while it's on your bar. This is nice, but it essentially becomes a dead skill slot. You may have it on your bar, but you're likely not casting it very often, and in order to actually achieve a 100% uptime on it, you would need to slot it on both bars. Hearth and Home can now replace Revealing Flare for a lot of people looking to improve their healing and utility output, while also not having to sacrifice major protection to get it. Overall, if you're a PvE-only healer, I'd probably skip out on this morph. But if you dabble in some PvP, it may be worth taking Ardent Flame for this skill alone. In conclusion, the Dragonknight class refresh has made DK healing a much more viable option, and that is represented beautifully by the new and improved Hearthfire skill. It and its morphs offer a strong healing output and solid utility in both PvE and PvP. If you'd like to see how you can incorporate the skill into some PvE builds, please feel free to check out my Dragonknight subclass healer builds video. And I think that was everything we had to cover in this episode of Healer Skill Spotlight. As always, I hope you enjoy the video and found it useful. Let me know what you think of Hearthfire, and make sure to leave your suggestions for skills you'd like to see covered in the series. Don't forget to check out the link in the description to follow me on stuff and join my Discord server. And before we head out, I also want to give a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters as well as my YouTube members. Thank you guys for being amazing, and I appreciate y'all. I think all I've got left to say is that I've been Doc. Take care of yourselves, be good to others, don't forget to try out Hearthfire, and I will catch y'all in the next one.